Hi, my name's Paul Sanneman. I'm founder of Contractor Staffing Source, and I'm here the host of Business Success Tips, where you learn to make more money in less time and hopefully have a lot more fun. And my co-host is Kai. Kai, tell them who you are.
Hi, my name is 𝗂𝗵𝗿𝗄𝗧. I'm the co-host here with Business Success Tips, and I'm here to introduce Sean Shapiro. Sean, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself and your company, please.
Hey everyone, I'm Sean Shapiro. I'm the managing partner at Axia Advisors. We are a sell-side boutique M&A advisory firm specializing in the trades.
So for reading your website, you made so much money you sold your first company. Why are you still working?
I got bored. More than anything, I got entrepreneurial drive. I mean, more than anything, we had 125 employees, and overnight I had 0 employees. And then I had a lot of free time, more than anything. And I just really have a passion for the trades. I grew up in them. My dad was an electrical contractor, and I just really passionate about seeing people find an exit in our industry. It's really hard to find an exit, and trying to help people fulfill that dream of growing something from nothing and being able to have a liquidity event like we had at Reliant Roofing. It's very meaningful for me, and it's something that kind of fills my personal wants and needs. And then obviously the monetary effect of it is also fun, but more than anything, I really enjoy seeing other people find success.
So I have a joke, and maybe it's not so much a joke. Either private equity is going to put you out of business or buy your business, right? So it's
That's right. That's right. Yeah, so, I mean, it's really hard to swim against the incoming tide right now with private equity in the trades. Obviously, a lot of consolidation happening, and we see it all the time now, Main Street America, and you see it in the Wall Street Journal, and every other conversation that someone's having is about private equity buying up some kind of blue-collar business. So they see something that we've seen for decades and decades, and now they're knocking at our door and offering us some substantial exits. And you know, sometimes they're good and sometimes they're bad, and they come in a bunch of different flavors. So it's been fun.
So I'm going to blame AI in a way, because I think what happened is AI is disrupting a lot of traditional places that private equity went, right? You're not going to buy a movie company. You're not going to buy insurance. Anywhere that AI can replace human beings, private equity is not going. But fortunately, AI is not putting on a roof anytime soon, as far as I know, right? I mean, they got drones trying it, but it's not. They take pictures, but I can't do it.
Right.
So, tell me who. I mean, now you're a private contractor. How big do you have to be? Where do you need to go to strategize an exit and hopefully not get a bad deal?
Yeah, I mean, more than anything, what I always tell people is it's always preparation, right? It's learning as much as you can. It's educating. You're buried in your business. You're running your business day to day. You're scaling it to the moon. You're dealing with HR and all the things that come with just running a traditional business. And then all of a sudden now you have to learn and educate on what does it look like to actually sell a business. And I think it's just trying to find really people that are experts in the space. So guys like me that have been through it, people like you guys that kind of talk to everyone and see and hear things. There's a lot of good insights that are out there that can be learned before you make a rash decision. I see it all too many times where there was no preparation in mind, and an owner says, today's the day I'm going to sell my business. I am just so fed up, whether it's retirement or they're just burned out, whatever it might be. And then they're just not fully prepared at that point, and they usually will have more of a distress sale than something that comes at a premium and that goes through a normal process. So I always just tell people, you know, you got to really make sure that you're educated and circle yourself around with experts, whether it's an M&A person like myself, or it's a good attorney, or it's a good CPA. You need all the different teammates to make sure that the transaction happens successfully, because on the other end, the private equity groups, as much as they want to buy you at the best deal they possibly can. I mean, they're going to be circling
the private equity companies are not on your side, right?
No,
I mean,
absolutely not.
They're the bad guys. You know, they want to figure out how little they can pay for your business and get by with it, right? So
yeah, of course.
How do you protect yourself, and where do you go? How do you find a good M&A person? I mean, how do you even tell what you don't even know what you don't know? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I always just tell people like, hey, I have a unique story that I could tell about my own experience, right? I've grown a company from 0 to 25 million. I sold it to private equity, had a great liquidity event. I have the experience of running my own deal and then running other deals at Axia. and hear it from the horse's mouth. Call all my prior clients and ask them their experiences. I think I lost my
You lost your video.
my video. Give me 1 second.
Okay, no problem.
I'm
So
coming back.
when you come back, I guess the question I find out, Sean, is how do you know and how do you prepare for liquidation? How do you keep yourself from being run over by private equity? Because my experience, especially in some spaces like roofing, you can't compete on advertising. You can't. I mean, they're coming in with 50 million. You got, $500,000. It's like, no, not fair. They got a gun and you got a knife, right? So how do you prepare yourself when you know you're ready? How does that whole system work? How big do you have to be? Some of those kind of questions.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the size varies, right? Like there's so many buyers now. I mean, there's 100 times more buyers in the market than there are quality sellers. So I always tell potential, people I'm talking to that are possibly thinking about going to market, like, don't worry about there being a buyer. If you have X, Y, and Z lined up and you're polished and you have certain things that they're looking for, it really doesn't matter kind of what size you are, as long as there are some levels of profitability, because there's independent sponsors where it's a single guy. Maybe he's burned out on corporate America. He's got $100,000 in his bank. He wants to use that and put some debt and go out and get an SBA loan and buy a business that maybe spins off $200,000, $300,000 in cash flow a year. And that's what he's looking to do, right? So that company would be pretty small in my eyes. That would be something that maybe is only doing $4 million in revenue, $3 to $4 million in revenue. It's still a sellable asset. And then, going upstream, there's private equity groups that are only looking at companies that are maybe doing $1 million to $3 million of EBITDA, right? And those have more structure to them, and they have multiple.
Just so like EBITDA, why explain? Some people know what EBITDA is. So why don't you explain what EBITDA is, just so somebody knows? Shit.
Let's just call it net income. With some add backs to it, just to make it pretty straightforward. If you're looking at your P&L, it's kind of like that net take home number. There's going to be some add backs and adjustments for it, but your net income.
What's the minimum? If you're making $500,000 EBITDA net, are you like not? Do you have to get at least to $1 million? I mean, what makes it even worthwhile?
Yeah, I mean, in most trades, you're probably looking somewhere in the $500,000 of net income range over the past year, and then probably a track record of some growth, or probably plateauing at that level over the past few years. That's where you'll have some smaller private equity groups that are going to entertain looking at a company of that size. But anything over like $1 million in EBITDA is where you find the largest swath of private equity, lower middle market private equity groups that are interested in buying your business.
So I've been having discussions with my new best friend AI, just right, saying, "What's my business worth?" Blah blah blah. And
Sure.
So, what kind of multiple can you get? And it depends on a lot of stuff. But give me some examples of multiples you can get. Is it 3 times, 5 times, 2 times EBITDA? And what makes sense, and how do you tell?
Yeah, I mean, typically, like on the lower level, $500,000 of net income, seller discretionary earning, EBITDA, whatever you want to call it. Let's just call it a flat $500,000. Quality business, been around for a substantial amount of time, where you didn't just spin it up 24 months ago. Doesn't have any crazy red flags to it. You're probably selling that business for 4 to 5 times that number, and it might not all be cash at closing. It might be 60-70% cash at closing. It might be some form of an earnout that you have to grow the business over the next few years to reach that bucket of money, rollover of equity. And then up to, let's talk about a company with $1 million of EBITDA. That company's probably right now trading for 6 to 8 times that number, which is really frothy comparatively to.
That's insane compared to 10 years ago, right? I mean,
yeah.
It's like, it used to be like you get 2 or 3. Yeah. Now you're looking at 6 to 8 merely because supply and demand. They can thank AI for that, right? Because there's all this money looking for some place to go, and they got to put it somewhere, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. I mean, I have a conversation a day with a group that is, their new thesis is something in the trades, right? They were buying up CPA firms, or they were doing some med spa roll up, and all of a sudden they're hot on roofing, or they're hot on plumbing, and they raised $50 million, $100 million that they need to deploy. So all these buyers are entering the market. There's still the same amount of quality contractors that are potentially out there to acquire. And that it's just more competitive market. And that's where you get frothier multiples.
I like the words frothier. That's a good word. I like that.
We go back to
Interesting
that a
word.
lot. It is. It really is. I mean, because I tell a lot of people, and not that I'm trying to rush anyone to market. I'm all about taking your time and making sure you time it right, because timing is everything. But the window's wide open right now for home service contractors to enter the market. Just from straight across, if you're looking at no other factors, there's just way more demand than there's ever been for these businesses, which again, coming back to the multiples, are as high as they've ever been. And we just don't know what headwinds we might face in the coming 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. We're not sure.
If robots can, if they get robots that will actually roof a house, that could change things, right? But at this point, they're not there yet, right? So, so right now, AI has devastated the most private equity markets. There's a whole bunch of cash. They want to go into things that AI can't do, which is fix roofs and plumbing and all that kind of stuff. So there's an ideal opportunity. So if you want to say, okay, I've been in business 5 years, I'm doing, $3 million, I'm netting 750,000. I'm ready to bail. I'm 65 years old. Where do I go from there?
I mean, the first stop would be talking to someone like myself that specializes in representing sellers of businesses, helping them prepare, helping them try to understand. The first conversation is a discovery about your business. Tell me everything that I need to know about the business, any skeletons in the closet, and then basically it's a due diligence list of mostly financial related items. And then from there, we're kind of digging in and we're recasting them. We're trying to get them as much apples to apples as a buyer would analyze those financials. So if you're on a cash basis, trying to look at it from an accrual standpoint, potentially making sure that we add any kind of like personal add backs and all those things that we all know that we're doing that are maybe not gap compliant.
Right. Obviously, your new car, your new plane, your new rent, whatever, right? Whatever you've done to what's right?
Yeah, because we want to be able to, the first step is like, hey, like my net income that I'm looking at is $300,000, but I'm also running $500,000 of personal expenditures and vacations through this business. Okay,
right. I've got 3 houses in an airplane, right? That I really don't need, but I did want to pay taxes. I get it.
Yeah, exactly.
We all have stuff we bought merely to paying more taxes than we need to. We've all been
there. Right. That's right. So I'm used to seeing crazy things there, and that's fine. And then basically, from there, it's recasting it and then giving people kind of a range of like low, mid, high of what I think a multiple would be. And then kind of an appetite of how many buyers we think we'd probably have at the table. And then kind of guiding them through the process of like, we could go today and you could probably sell for this range, or I know your business well enough to tell you could do X, Y, and Z maybe over the next 3, 6, 9 months. In preparation of going to market, and maybe we get one more multiple out of it, or maybe we get a half a multiple out of it, and maybe it ends up being another $1 million of income for you. So there's a lot of those conversations, and typically I try to tell people to align themselves with someone that can represent them, that knows the industry well, because they can see a lot of these things and really understand what buyers pay a premium for and where not to spend time on in preparation. But there are a lot of things, a lot of levers that can be turned within a few months' time that could really help what the end result will look like, and also the quality of the buyers that you can attract.
So it sounds to me like, sometimes you try to avoid having a real estate agent because you want to pay the commission. We've all been there, right?
Right.
But it sounds like in this case, you're going to do better with somebody to represent you than trying to go straight to the private equity, right?
I would say 100% of the time, only because you just don't know what you don't know. And a real estate trend, like selling a house and selling a business, couldn't be farther different. Like, they are the nuances of how to get the deal done and the mechanisms and all the legalese that goes into it. As a seller, you've never seen any of these things in your life before, unless you've sold a business.
And neither has your
CPA.
CPA.
Never seen it. They are going to take it full advantage. The private equity groups, they will smell blood in the water immediately and be like, we're going to.
So they're coming with a gun and you're coming with a knife, and you're probably going to lose. Got it?
Yeah, 100% of the time.
Okay.
Yeah. So I always tell people, and then obviously it's my job to kind of drive up value right through the process.
Now, how do you? I assume you get paid a percentage of what you sell it for, right?
Yes, correct.
What's a typical percentage?
It depends on the size of the deal. For me, on the low end, it's 5%. On the high end, it's 10%, just depending on the size of the deal. Okay,
so you definitely earn your money there for sure. Okay, so if people want to get in touch with you, Sean, they want to sell your business, how do they do that?
You can go right on our website, 𝗪𝗏𝐴dvisors.com. There's an easy contact form on there. You can also email me. It's just Sean, SEAN, @𝗪𝗏𝐴advisors.com. But easiest way is go on the website, throw time on my calendar, easy to block 30-minute blocks on my calendar and have a discussion more than anything. And really, like, it's very low pressure with me. I do a few deals a year. I'm very picky about what.
Well, we know you're already independently wealthy, so you're not motivated by money, right? So
yeah,
you
right.
You got that part
I'm big
right.
about ethics and principles. There's a lot of.
Got it.
We all know there's some. There's a lot of founders in our space that we don't always see eye to eye with. So I make a big deal about aligning myself with high quality companies and founders and making sure that we align well from the jump and just giving them guidance. I'm here to kind of be a confidant and liaison through the process.
So one quickie is, do you just do roofing businesses, or what if I got a plumbing business or an HVAC business?
Yeah, I've done plumbing, HVAC. Most of my inbound leads come from roofing just because of me being in the space for such a long time. I've done water restoration, any kind of blue collar trade, whether it's residential or commercial. I've probably touched it.
So my advice is call Sean if you're ready to leave, but keep in mind 80% of the people that sell businesses regret it. And I think that's more of emotional than it is financial. So make sure it's something you're willing to play golf as opposed to tell people what to do all day and you're good. Okay, thanks, Sean.
Right. Yeah.
Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, no
Have
problem.
a good one. Talk to you later.